Yvette Cooper.
Now and always, the work that this department does to keep our country safe, to keep our communities secure and our borders secure, it is the bedrock of what everybody else does across government.
We have to have a major upgrade in law enforcement, and that is why we are setting up the new Border Security Command.
So I want this to be a turning point in the work that we do on keeping people safe across the country and in restoring the confidence in policing and the criminal justice system that can do that. Because this is about people's lives and their safety. That is what we want to deliver. That's what we can achieve together. So let's get to work.
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
Unpicking 40 years of decisions with a whole new top team. But what are the pitfalls of the people that he's chosen for the top team? Well, let's look at the most important one of all. Surprise as Chancellor John Healey. First elected as an MP in 1997, seen as a veteran safe pair of hands, not as left-wing as Ed Miliband, as right-wing as Shabana Mahmood, the two names actually thought to be Chancellor. But the question for John Healey is when he was in the Ministry of Defence, he left a big black hole, didn't get a grip of the finances. Can he do a better job once he's in the Chancellor's chair? We will find out. And now this guy, he hoped to be the Chancellor, but isn't. Ed Miliband has ended up being Foreign Secretary. Some people thought it would be David, but the guy who helped Andy Burnham into number 10 has ended up in King Charles Street. He could end up in conflict with the US. He stopped the US using Diego Garcia, argued against them being able to bomb Iran from our bases. His stance on climate change and drilling could mean he also comes into conflict with the Trump administration, so he could be a contentious choice with the US. Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary, she fought a strong campaign to stay where she is. The challenge for her, of course, she's pushing through tough immigration reforms, which will now remain in place. Lots of people in the Labour Party hoped she would go in order that they could scrap them. No longer will that be possible. Louise Haigh. Nobody did more to get Andy Burnham into number 10 than this person. She is First Secretary of State, which means that she's going to be at the engine room of this government, covering everything from the Cabinet Office. But can she keep a grip and keep the show on the road? She doesn't have a great deal of experience in government, so we'll see whether she is able to do that. Yvette Cooper, a surprise choice for Health Secretary. The former Foreign Secretary. It's a slight move downwards. She doesn't know the brief, but nevertheless is in a top role in a complicated job key to Labour's aspirations. Now, the final person staying in the job that they were in under Keir Starmer is Pat McFadden, but he is a reformer. Andy Burnham in the past hasn't wanted to take benefits away from claimants, so is he going to end up in sync with his boss? That's the challenge for him. Look at all of these names and the rest of the cabinet. What unites some of the big ones? They wanted to get rid of Keir Starmer more than anybody else. But the question is, can they inspire loyalty in their boss now they're in the jobs themselves?
Right, breaking news, Mark. Yvette Cooper's walking up the street, but John Healey is the Chancellor. I can reveal that John Healey has been made Chancellor. Would you like to remain Foreign Secretary? Not answering that.
No.
I can tell you John Healey is Chancellor of the Exchequer, and I can tell you that was not expected.
No.
It was not expected. The whole discussion in Westminster was Ed Miliband going into that job. Then there was all this talk about it becoming Shabana Mahmood, but it's John Healey. We were right. If you're first up the street, you are Chancellor, but that is a curveball. As I was saying yesterday, I was told by someone that I really think did know that it was between Shabana Mahmood and Ed Miliband. But until it's done, it's not done. Yeah. And breaking news, John Healey, the Defence Secretary that quit government over the Defence Investment Plan, is the Chancellor. And I think if you are Mark Rutte in NATO at the moment, or President Zelensky in Ukraine,
you're delighted.
The Defence Secretary that has constantly talked about needing to properly invest in defence, becoming the Chancellor, you will be delighted about that.
Yvette Cooper just exposed the real Keir Starmer, and Westminster is reeling. There are moments in British politics when the mask slips just enough for the public to see what's really going on behind the black door of number 10. This is one of those moments. What you're about to hear isn't spin, it isn't speculation. It's a sitting cabinet minister turning on the man who used to be her boss, and doing it with the kind of quiet precision that only comes from someone who has watched power up close for decades. Welcome back to Britain Underneath, the channel that pulls apart what's really happening in Westminster, while everyone else is still reading the press release. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button right now, because we go where the polished politicians don't want the cameras to follow, and you will not want to miss what's coming next. Let's dive straight into it. The Home Secretary of the United Kingdom, the person actually responsible for the policy, kept out of the loop on how her own work would be presented to the nation. If that doesn't tell you something about how number 10 really operated under Starmer, nothing will. Before we go further, if you're finding this eye-opening, now is the perfect time to hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because Britain Underneath uploads the stories mainstream outlets tend to soften or bury completely, and you don't want to miss the next one. So what exactly were these immigration reforms that caused so much friction behind the scenes? Starmer's government unveiled a sweeping package designed to ramp up deportations, widen the pool of offenders eligible for removal, and fundamentally rework how Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights gets applied in immigration cases. The social care visa route was scrapped outright. Foreign workers were pushed toward graduate-level roles only, with tighter English language requirements bolted on for good measure. The Home Office itself predicted the changes would cut arrivals by around 100,000 people, aiming to bring net migration down to somewhere between 240 and 250,000 by the end of this Parliament in 2029. Migrants would also be barred from claiming benefits unless they became British citizens, and anyone applying for indefinite leave to remain after a decade in the country would need a clean criminal record, strong English language skills, and no outstanding debt. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. There had been growing anger over how Article 8, the right to family life, was being used by some of the country's most dangerous offenders to dodge deportation. Sex offenders, paedophiles, drug dealers, killers. People using a legal loophole meant to protect genuine family bonds to stay in Britain, even when they weren't actually present in their children's lives. The government's response was to instruct asylum caseworkers to give no weight to Article 8 claims, where a family relationship had been built while someone had no legal right to even be here in the first place. New rules would also force anyone relying on family ties, whether a foreign criminal, a failed asylum seeker, or an immigration offender, to prove their relationship was genuine and ongoing, not just a convenient paper trail. This is exactly the kind of story that gets buried under the noise of daily headlines, which is why Britain Underneath exists. We slow down, we connect the dots, and we bring you the parts of the story that actually matter. If you want more of this kind of digging, the subscribe button is right there, and it genuinely helps this channel keep doing what it does. But the immigration row is only half the story Cooper told. She went further, offering a blunt assessment of the last 2 years of government performance, admitting that things simply hadn't been run well. She pointed to real achievements: 3,000 additional neighbourhood police officers on the beat, a noticeable shift in towns like Castleford, and NHS waiting lists finally trending downward. But she was equally clear that the government's early focus, built around a set of national missions, quietly evaporated after the first 6 months. That's a remarkable admission from someone who was sitting inside that cabinet the entire time. And then came the comparison that really stings. Cooper contrasted Starmer's hands-off approach with how Andy Burnham has handled social care reform, a policy area Burnham has been personally driven to fix. According to Cooper, Burnham wants to be in the room, wrestling with the actual problems, asking how to solve them, and pulling colleagues in to help shape the answer, rather than simply appearing at the finish line to take a bow. She even suggested that in an age of social media, it's now painfully obvious what a leader genuinely cares about and what they're simply performing for the cameras. There's a wider story here, too, about Cooper's own remarkable career. 27 years ago, she was a junior health minister. Now, after a career that's taken her through the Home Office and beyond, she's back in health, under a different Prime Minister entirely, in a government reshaped by a leadership change that stunned Westminster earlier this year. She spoke candidly about the disorientation of reshuffles, the frustration of leaving policies unfinished, and the strange full-circle nature of returning to a brief she first touched almost 3 decades ago. What Cooper's comments really expose is a deeper tension at the heart of recent British government, the gap between the people doing the work and the people getting the credit for it. It raises real questions about leadership style, about trust between colleagues, and about whether style over substance eventually catches up with a Prime Minister, no matter how polished the delivery. Before you go, take a breath, because there's a lot to sit with here. This is exactly why staying properly informed matters, because the version of events you get from a soundbite is rarely the whole picture. Britain Underneath exists to give you that fuller picture, without the spin, without the noise, just the story underneath the story. If you've made it this far, please do hit subscribe. It costs nothing, and it means everything to a channel like this one. And if today's video gave you something to think about, there's more where that came from. Westminster never stops moving, and neither do we. See you in the next one.